Hello, folks. I'm Josh McGee, and welcome to another episode of the Gateway to Soccer Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, we are rapidly approaching the end of the first month of 2021, which means we are basically past the halfway point of the international club schedule and that we are waiting the return of soccer here in the States. Speaking of the States, I got a little bit of a red, white, and blue theme here in the home studio this week in honor of Inauguration Day. Over here on this shoulder, I've got an old Landon Donovan USA t-shirt jersey, and over here on this shoulder, of course, I've got an old French national team jersey before they won their second World Cup. And supporting my alma mater, Bradley University here, wearing a Bradley men's soccer shirt. Bradley doesn't have a football team, so men's soccer is their premier fall sport, which of course makes it the perfect alma mater for myself. So I'm excited to get to all the soccer news from the past week, and I don't think there's a better place to start than with one of the game's biggest stars. But before that, I want to make this point about stars in sports. A star athlete staying with one team for his whole professional career is becoming a rarity in sports. We don't see the likes of a Dirk Nowitzki or a Tim Duncan anymore in basketball, or a Derek Jeter in baseball, or even maybe a Dan Marino in football. If you think about it lately, Tom Brady, or even going back a little bit further, Joe Montana in football finished with different teams. Albert Pujols here in St. Louis didn't finish his career in St. Louis. In basketball, the greatest players ever, LeBron James and Michael Jordan, played for multiple teams in their career. It's even a rarer occurrence in soccer. Think about some of the greatest soccer players of all time, someone like a Ronaldinho, or maybe even a Zinedine Zidane, or a Diego Maradona. None of those guys played for just one club in their careers. It's a rarity in soccer because of all the big name clubs that we have in the game, and also that it is much easier to move in soccer than it is in any other sport. So that's what makes these guys that stay with one team for their entire career so noteworthy, especially if they are able to do it at the highest level in the game. One man, of course, stands above all else when it comes to this trend, and that would be Lionel Messi. Messi is in his 17th season as a member of Barcelona's senior team. He has scored double-digit goals in 15 straight of those seasons. Just a phenomenal goal-scoring record. He is arguably the greatest player, not just in today's game, but of all time. Yet he had something happen to him for the first time in his career that only adds to the narrative coming out of this past summer that his time at Barcelona may be coming to an end. This past Sunday, at the end of Barcelona's Supercopa match versus Athletic Bilbao, a match that Barcelona would lose 3-2 in extra time, Messi was shown a straight red card for striking one of the Bilbao players. It was the first time ever that Messi had been sent off as a member of Barcelona's senior team. It was his 753rd appearance for the club, and he could be facing up to a 2-match ban for the red card. Now, of course, I'm not naive to think that Messi has been a saint for his entire career. I'm sure he's gotten the benefit of the doubt loads of times in different matches, but the fact that he was finally caught, that he was finally sent off for Barcelona, I think shows a little bit of the underlying big issue that he's just not happy, that he's extremely frustrated. And again, this was a match that Barcelona at that point were going to lose. Another disappointing result, another early exit from a cup competition, and it just furthers the narrative of what Messi is feeling right now and that his time could be coming to an end at Barcelona. Now, of course, Barcelona, they've leveled the ship a little bit after that really bad, embarrassing start to the La Liga season. They are up to third in the table, and of course, they are still in the Champions League, but you can just see it right now out there on the pitch from Messi. He just does not look happy. He doesn't look like his usual self, and because of that, he just isn't contributing in the ways that we're used to seeing him do. One of the reasons why Barcelona don't look like the dominating team that we're used to seeing is because of Messi. He had an 11-goal drop-off from the previous season last year, and he is currently on pace to have even a lower goal total this season. Now, of course, he hit that double-digit bench marker, but this is a man who has routinely scored 20-plus goals in basically almost every season that he's played for Barcelona. And his assists are way down. Messi is only at 2 assists. He's only had single-digit assist totals in 2 of his 17 seasons when he has made 12-plus starts. Now, of course, a big part of that could be the lack of production he's getting from his teammates. Antoine Griezmann just has not paid off like they thought he would. Ousmane Dembele, he's either hurt or he's out of form. He just isn't quite clicking with the rest of that group. And Messi is getting no support from the guys behind him in the center of the midfield. So, of course, that lack of production has something to do with it. But we are used to seeing Messi turning nothing into something, making magic from impossible different situations. And it's just not happening this year. So while, of course, the whole team is struggling, I don't think manager Ronald Koeman was the best choice for this job. But really, at the end of the day, he is the superstar. He is widely regarded as one of the best, if not the best, in the game. He's got to be the guy that makes it happen. He didn't score in this match. He hasn't scored in a lot of different matches. He's been hurt a little bit at times this season, but still, he's been in there quite a lot. And he's just not trending in the right direction in terms of his usual goal scoring and assist totals. In my opinion, unless Barcelona makes some great run in the Champions League, I just think they're too far away from Atletico Madrid and from Real Madrid to make some noise in the La Liga chase. If they make a run in the Champions League, maybe some things change. But if they don't win it, and especially if they go out in this upcoming round, it's going to be just too tough to get away from the allure of potentially playing for your former manager and Pep Guardiola, someone who got the best out of you in your career at Manchester City, or look over to PSG, where you could play with former teammate Neymar, you had great rapport with, and you can play alongside your countryman Angel Di Maria, and potentially maybe someone like a Sergio Aguero. PSG are just loaded with cash. I'm sure they could get a bunch of guys that Messi enjoyed playing with, and they could really obviously compete for the Champions League and other trophies. It's going to be extremely difficult to avoid those two situations if Barcelona continue to fall off and go into this tailspin that they've been going through for the past couple of seasons. The Cristiano Ronaldo transfer from Real Madrid to Juventus caught me by surprise because Ronaldo had been so successful. Real Madrid are one of the biggest clubs in the world. It would not shock me at this point if, in this summer, we see Messi leave the club that he's been so successful with, that he's been with for basically his whole career, because that just seems to be the trend in soccer. Even the best have played for multiple different clubs in their career. Messi would be no different than some of the greats in the game. So it's an interesting trend to see here over the last half of the season, what Barcelona are able to accomplish domestically and what they can do in the Champions League in order to hold on to Lionel Messi. I'd love to see him finish his career just playing for Barcelona, but at this point, they just have not been treating him well. They're not being successful, and there are a couple of other options that would be great for Messi if he would choose to leave. So something to look out for. One of the greatest players, if not one of the greatest player in today's game and all time, could be moving away from the club that he's been with his whole career. So that's my take on a big potential transfer that could happen in the summer. But now I want to focus on the current transfer window and the transfer market news that has been going on from the past week. Not much to report. Again, it's going to pick up here in the next week. And I think in a couple weeks after the window closes on January 31st, I'll have a little bit of a winners and losers from this transfer window. But there were a couple of interesting moves and reports that I would like to highlight here in this segment. I want to start off by talking about a Spurs player and potentially a link to PSG. If you've been following football, Mauricio Pochettino, former Tottenham Hotspur manager, is now in charge over there at PSG, and he is interested in bringing on one of his former players, and that would be Dele Alli. If you can remember, Alli was supposed to be one of the bright young stars of Tottenham. He's going to form this great dynamic duo with Harry Kane, but he has since tapered off under Jose Mourinho, and he's essentially been frozen out. He's only played 74 total minutes in the English Premier League this season, and it's been rumored that Pochettino is interested in throwing him a lifeline here and bringing him over to France. Alli wants to move, of course, because he wants to play, but Tottenham aren't really interested right now in setting up a potential loan deal. They would rather sell, and they would rather sell for a high price. PSG, of course, have the money, but because of financial fair play, they have to do these types of deals that they can't just outright buy players. They have to set up these types of loan options. So because of that technicality, I don't know if it's going to happen now. Obviously, Alli, he needs the playing time. He's a bright young player still who needs the opportunity, but he just doesn't fit in Jose Mourinho's system. There's usually a lot of players that don't fit in that season, and playing for your former manager where you were successful under him would be a great opportunity. So we'll see if it works out. It would be a nice little add to PSG. They got the great front three over there with Neymar, Mbappe, and Di Maria, but they could use some help in behind those guys, someone who's a box-to-box midfielder who can help on both ends. So keep an eye out potentially if they're able to work out a move for Dele Alli and how he could potentially help out his former boss. Next up, I want to talk about Arkadiusz Milik. The out-of-favor Napoli striker is on the verge of making a transfer to Marseille in League One. Milik hasn't seen the pitch this season despite scoring 28 goals over the past couple seasons for Napoli in Serie A. He's a great striker. He's still in his 20s, Polish international, but just hasn't gotten the time. He's been frozen out for some reason from the club. It could be a great get for Marseille, who are currently in 6th place in the League One table. Milik, he just doesn't get the shine, obviously, because of a certain other Polish striker by the name of Robert Lewandowski. I'm sure you've heard of him. but he's a pretty good goal scoring threat. He's a big body in there that can really, create space, get his head onto some of the balls brought into the box. He's just a good, solid striker who's got a great goal scoring record and can really help out Marseille here as they try to qualify for a Champions League spot. And lastly, real quick, I want to talk about a couple of older strikers who are making moves to some bigger clubs. First off, former Juventus striker and free agent Mario Mandzukic is making a return to Serie A and has signed on with the current league leaders AC Milan. Mandzukic was last playing in Qatar, I believe, last year, but of course he has a track record of playing for some big clubs like Bayern Munich and Juventus and has a great goal-scoring record. Also, Ajax striker Klaas-Jan Huntelaar will be returning to Bundesliga club Schalke, where he racked up 126 goals in 240 appearances with that club before signing on with Ajax in 2017. Huntelaar was a part of some of Schalke's best seasons. He's a great, experienced striker to have, but of course he's going to have to fight for some playing time because of the young American Matthew Hoppe, who has just taken over that side, has been a great sensation for that club as they tried to avoid relegation this season. So those are just some small moves and stories from the transfer market to report on for this week. Like I said, it's going to pick up here over the next 7 to 10 days, and we're just going to have to see if a big move is made before the deadline or if teams will look to just shore up their depth at a financially stable rate and prepare for a big summer coming up, hopefully with the pandemic being lifted and clubs having more money to spend here in the near future. So next up, I want to transition over to a segment that I've done on a couple of different shows that I've had over the past few years, either soccer or just overall sports in general, and that's observing trends. Who's trending up, who's trending down, who you should be looking out for when you're watching soccer. For this episode this week, I want to focus on the Premier League. That is the league that I follow the most closely, and there's a lot of stuff going on throughout the table, not just at the top, not just with the bigger clubs. I want to start off on the positive side. Who's trending up right now in the Premier League? I want to start off with Leicester City winger James Maddison. Maddison has scored in 3 straight matches, including the 2-0 victory over Chelsea in midweek, and he has Leicester just 2 points behind Manchester United at the top of the table. Maddison has provided a great source of creativity and goals. Right now, Jamie Vardy just hasn't gotten going over these past few weeks, so they need some extra production. And Maddison, man, he just has a knack for finding space, for getting his shot off. He rang the woodwork also in this match versus Chelsea. He's been on the cusp of breaking into the English national team, a young guy to definitely be looked out for in the future. But right now, an extra source of offense here for Leicester City, who would once again maintain a challenge for the top of the Premier League table, at least for a Champions League spot. And he's a big reason why they're trending up right now. Who else is trending up? How about Manchester City's defense? Man City have won 5 straight matches across all competitions, keeping a clean sheet in all of them. Get a load of this stat. Since their November 21st loss to Tottenham, that was their last loss that they've had this season, Man City have kept a clean sheet in 13 of their past 16 matches across all competitions. They're just playing lights out defense, and that is even without Laporte out there at center back, but the likes of Ruben Dias, who has been a godsend for this club. It was a late transfer before the beginning of the season, or at least before the end of the transfer window, and John Stones, the reemergence of the English center back, has been fantastic as well. You've got João Cancelo, who can play either at right back or left back. City are firing on all cylinders right now, and we usually think about them from an offensive perspective, but it's really their defense that has been the driving force. Nobody can get past those guys right now, and that is why they have charged right back up to the top of the table and are once again title contenders. So again, Man City's defense, they are trending up, and they have been the dominant force so far in the Premier League over the past few weeks. Next up on who is trending up, that would be West Ham manager David Moyes. He has the club flying high on a 5-match unbeaten run that has seen them climb to 7th place in the English Premier League table. West Ham finished last season on 39 points. They already have 32 points so far this season. It's been a great transformation at that club. David Moyes has really brought some consistency with the lineups, with the guys that he has selected. Offensively, they got a lot of great guys who can create in different ways. And defensively, that's been the most important thing. Obviously, they can get great goalkeeping from Lucas Fabianski when he's in there, but the defense in front of them has been much better. You got someone like Aaron Cresswell also who can provide on the offensive end with some great service. West Ham are playing some great football right now. They're one of the better clubs in London at the moment, if you can believe it. And who knows, maybe they could challenge for a spot in Europe next season. So congrats to David Moyes. Obviously, his tenure at Manchester United was pretty ugly. He's bounced around, but he's found a home at West Ham, and he's got them in a great position to finish with a fantastic point total. Lastly, on who's trending up, I got to go with Arsenal's youth movement. Arsenal are also in the midst right now of a 5-match unbeaten run, and they've been able to keep a clean sheet in their past 4 league matches. But I'm more interested on what they've got going on the other side of the pitch, because they've got 19-year-old Bukayo Saka, who has scored in 3 of the past 5 matches for Arsenal, and 20-year-old Emile Smith-Rowe has provided assists in 3 of the past 5 matches for Arsenal. I believe actually he's assisted on all of Saka's goal, but I'm not quite sure. But those two have really redefined Arsenal's offense. Again, 19 and 20 years old. Arsenal have also deployed a lot of younger guys in their side. You've got Aaron Maitland-Niles. You've got Gabriel Martinelli. A lot of different young players over there at Arsenal that have really changed their fortunes. They're up to mid-table right now. They're trending more so on the way up. And they've obviously developed an identity and a path going forward with these young players. So right now, I'm more optimistic about Arsenal than some of the other clubs I'll talk about here in a moment. And they could really be in store for a nice boost and could fight their way back up towards the top of the table. Now, unfortunately, it's time to talk about the negatives. Who's trending down in the Premier League? And you have to start with the obvious right now. You got to go with Chelsea manager Frank Lampard. Lampard is on the verge of being sacked as Chelsea lost for the 5th time in their past 8 league matches in midweek. There seems to be no sign of improvement in their play, and the team's mentality right now, at least to me, seems to be the greatest concern. I don't think they should be blameless here. It seems like Chelsea go through this every so often. It's always the manager who gets the axe. There's so much talent in that side. So much money was spent on bringing in big names. At the end of the day, the likes of Timo Werner and Kai Havertz just have to figure it out. They're talented guys. They need to figure out how to play in the Premier League, but it is on the manager to put them in the best position possible to get the best out of them. It doesn't seem like Lampard has really adjusted his system. He seems to be too loyal to the guys that brought him success last season. The defense seems to still be in shambles at different points, and now, of course, the offense has been struggling to go along with it. He's not getting any of these results. Chelsea were at the top of the table a few months ago, riding high, and now all of a sudden they're trending towards mid-table. Like I said, I feel more optimistic about Arsenal right now than I do about Chelsea, and there just seems to be no adjustment. There seems to be no leadership, no sense of urgency to get them out of this rut. I hate blaming one person. Of course, Lampard, how successful he was last season when he had to deal with the transfer ban and play a bunch of those youth players. He was incredible. But now, of course, with all the money that has been spent, he's got world-class players at basically every position. There is no excuse. And right now, Chelsea are on a free fall, and they can't afford too many losses, and especially with the Champions League coming up. They got fixtures versus Atletico Madrid, who are leading La Liga right now. This is a tough time right now. And, oh, man, I just feel for Lampard so much. But he's the guy. He's got to be the guy to figure this out. He's got to put guys in the best position possible. He's got to play the right guys. Stop sitting Kurt Zouma. He's one of your better center backs. He's been one of your better defenders all season. You got to play him if he's healthy. Again, just make the easy decisions, adjust your lineup, and maybe things will work out for the best. Otherwise, he's going to be out the door here in a couple weeks. Someone else who is trending down in the Premier League is Liverpool winger Mo Salah. I talked a little bit about it last week in the lead up to the Liverpool-Manchester United match, how he was going to have to be the guy to get Liverpool out of their rut. Well, it was the same old for right now in that match. It finished 0-0. Salah missed a couple of chances in that match. He's now gone 5 straight matches without a goal. And Liverpool as a whole have gone 3 straight without a goal. And again, after the match, or at least in midweek, Salah was once again dismissive about his future. This has come up a little bit weirdly here in this season, how Salah could be potentially moving on to maybe a Real Madrid or Barcelona. I haven't heard much interest from either of those clubs, but Salah continues to mention it, or at least be dismissive, saying that's for other people to figure out. It's for the club to figure out in terms of his future. And I just don't think it's a good look to be talking about your future right now when you're struggling and when the club is struggling. Salah's got to be able to figure it out and get Liverpool out of this slump that they're in, because they have lost ground to Manchester United. Manchester City is now on their rear, and they're going to find themselves looking up at a lot of different clubs in that table. So Salah's got to figure it out. Struggling right now. We'll see if he's going to be able to pull himself out of it. Next up, hate to say it, but Wolves are trending down right now. After sustained success over the past couple of seasons, they find themselves right now in 14th place in the EPL table, having gone winless in 7 of their past 9 matches. Now, of course, a big reason for this is they're missing their goal scorer, Raul Jimenez, because of that horrific collision that he had in the Arsenal match a couple months ago. But the main problem has been their defense. They're just giving up way too many goals right now. I think they just gave up 3 to West Brom of all teams a match or 2 ago. It's just not as solid this year. Now they've sold off a couple of different guys, but still the crux of that defense remains the same. They just don't have that magic right now. They aren't able to create and get teams out of their own end, and they're in a bit of a rut, and it's going to be tough because this year the table is just so tight that a couple of different results can really have you plummet. Now, of course, I think they've got the right guys in place, right manager, and if Jimenez comes back soon, maybe they'll be able to right the ship. But right now, it's a little bit uncharacteristic of what we've gotten from Wolves over the past few seasons to see them that far down in the table. And lastly, I don't think this man has ever been trending up when it comes to soccer, but I just want to highlight what's going on over at Newcastle and with owner Mike Ashley. Newcastle are once again near the bottom of the table. I believe they've dropped off to 15th place. Their last win came on December 12th versus West Brom. They recently just lost to Sheffield United, who hadn't won all season. And again, it's the same old with this club. They're one of the biggest clubs in England, and Ashley has just run them into the ground. He just never seems to be focused on the football side of things. He seems to be more focused on naming rights at the stadium. We're once again coming to a January transfer window where he's probably not going to spend a lot of money on players, and it would just be terrible to see a club as big as Newcastle drop down once again to the championship. But he just doesn't seem interested, or he doesn't know what he's doing, and he just doesn't seem to care. Just another one of those billionaire owners that just likes having a club that they own, and they don't really put time and effort into it. So really hate to see it with what's going on over there at Newcastle. They got a lot of nice guys, nice players that I think will be able to get them out of this, and they'll manage to stay in the Premier League. But it's just a shame. There have been those rumors of potential new ownership group coming in and purchasing the club from Ashley. That fell through, and Newcastle fans are stuck once again having to support a club with the owner that doesn't seem to care about them. So hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully they show some improvement. But right now, Newcastle, same old, being stuck near the bottom of the table. So that's who's trending up and who's trending down in the English Premier League. Fun little segment. I think maybe next week or in a couple of weeks, I'll do a trending up and trending down here for overall international clubs, but we'll just have to see how things develop. But I want to transition over now to soccer in America. And of course, we're going to start with MLS and the big coaching news that came down from the league this week. Former Manchester United player and former English women's national team manager Phil Neville was appointed as the next manager over there at Inter Miami CF. Of course, there is the David Beckham connection. The two grew up through the Manchester United Youth Academy and were teammates together for 8 seasons. They're also co-owners of English League Two side Salford City. Neville already has a pretty solid coaching career. He really helped develop that English national team into an international powerhouse. But still, obviously on the face of it, it looks like a buddy hooking up a friend with a new job. We're just going to have to see how Neville's tactics and how his coaching ability transfers over to MLS. But he's got a lot of international pedigree, not just as a coach, but of course, as a solid player in his day. It's going to be exciting, going to be interesting to see what he can bring to Miami. Obviously, they're always going to have the spotlight shown on them because of the owner, because of the city, and we're just going to have to see what Neville can bring to this club in their second season. Next up, MLS hosted their annual SuperDraft on Thursday afternoon. Expansion club Austin Bolt FC held the first overall pick, and they selected Virginia Tech forward Daniel Pereira. Pereira scored 6 goals and added 6 assists in 26 games in his Virginia Tech career and helped lead them to a number 4 national ranking at the end of last fall. FC Cincinnati followed up that pick by selecting Wake Forest forward Calvin Harris, not the DJ, the Wake Forest forward, number 2 overall. Those were a couple of interesting picks because while those guys deserved to be highly drafted, they weren't the consensus number 1 overall prospect. That was Clemson midfielder Philip Mayaka, who went 3rd overall to the Colorado Rapids, who actually traded up into the top 5, making a deal with the Houston Dynamo in order to take Mayaka. Mayaka is a great holding midfielder or a central midfielder type prospect. He was a Mac Hermann Trophy semifinalist at Clemson. So again, Colorado were able to take advantage of how the draft folded and were able to trade up and get Mayaka there at number 3. A lot of great, interesting picks as well throughout this draft. But of course, I want to highlight on the St. Louis aspect of it for you all. St. Louis was well represented in the Super Draft once again. Former St. Louis FC Academy product and Columbia, Illinois native Aiden Stanley was selected 21st overall by Austin in the Super Draft. Stanley recently just played with Portland Timbers 2 in the USL Championship last season. Also, Stanford fullback and St. Louis native Logan Pancho was selected 32nd overall by DC United. So again, congrats to those 2 guys. Stanley gets an excellent opportunity to showcase himself for the brand new club in MLS in Austin. He recently signed for Sporting KC too. I guess that was just kind of an insurance type thing, but he'll have the opportunity to prove himself in MLS. As for Logan, he's coming off of a great career with Stanford. He was the captain of that team. Now he gets to go to DC United, who just brought in, I believe, the youngest coach in the league to help lead that team. So hopefully Logan gets an excellent opportunity there to maybe prove himself as well. So congrats to those two guys, making St. Louis proud. And man, I'm so excited eventually for the day when St. Louis City SC will get to participate in this draft. We'll have the opportunity to potentially select some of these local guys. So again, congrats to those two. Another exciting MLS draft, and hopefully soon St. Louis City will get to be involved. And lastly, I previously brought up comments from Seattle Sounders winger Jordan Morris about a potential move to Europe, and that seems to be where we are trending. Morris has left the U.S. men's national team camp early in order to potentially finalize a 6-month loan to English championship side Swansea City, who are currently second in the league championship table. It would be an excellent opportunity for Morris to contribute to a side who are looking to be promoted to the English Premier League, and of course strike up a relationship there and potentially a long-term deal where he could be playing for a Premier League side. But still, it's interesting to see him move after the success he's had with Seattle. He's spent his entire playing career there so far. It will be a pretty big jump up, and it'll be a weird transition in terms of style of play, moving from MLS to the English game. This is an important time in Morris's career. He's still trying to maintain a steady place in the U.S. men's national team, of course, as we come up on a World Cup cycle. So again, interesting development here that he would move from a very successful MLS side over to an English championship club, but still there's a potential there to help in their promotion to the Premier League and maybe potentially play for them next season as well. So again, good on Morris, just another high-profile U.S. men's national team player moving across to Europe to continue developing his game. Next up, moving on to women's soccer. It was great to see the U.S. women's national team back in action. They beat Colombia 4-0 in their first match on home soil since the She Believes Cup last March. Sam Ewis scored a hat trick in the match and was followed up by her sister Christy, who scored in the 86th minute for her third international goal. Also of note, Brazilian-born Catarina Macario made her national team debut after she recently had gotten approval from FIFA to play for the U.S. women's national team. It's really cool to see all the regulars. You had Carly Lloyd, you had Megan Rapinoe mixing that with some of the younger players on the team. No Alex Morgan because of her recent positive COVID-19 test, but still, it was really cool to see U.S. women's national team back in action, and they are getting ready for a very action-packed, hopefully action-packed 2021 season. Part of that action that the U.S. women's national team will be seeing will be coming up here next month with the return of the She Believes Cup. The field for the tournament was announced. The U.S. will be hosting the likes of Canada, Brazil, and Japan next month in Orlando. Excited to see the return of this tournament. Those three sides are all within the top 10 of FIFA's rankings. Of course, the United States are number one and are the reigning winners, but it'll be exciting to see how the women's team will be put out there, the mixture of some of the older and newer players, how they will interact, and how they'll be going up against some of the top teams in the world. So excited for that tournament to be back, to see who will be out there on the pitch for the U.S. and how it sets them up for preparation for the Olympics. And lastly, one interesting move from this past week in the NWSL, Irish international and defender Diane Caldwell signed a one-year deal with the North Carolina Courage. Caldwell has made 79 appearances for Ireland since 2006, and she is transferring over from Bundesliga club SC Sand, where she was the club captain and made 107 appearances over the past 5 seasons. The Courage have seen a lot of players go out from this past season, so it's nice to get someone in with this type of experience who can really shore up the back line there. Moving over to the USL Championship to talk a couple of transactions that happened over in that league. Starting off with FC Tulsa. They announced the signing of forward Jerome Kieswetter last week. Kieswetter actually has U.S. men's national team experience. He appeared for them in a couple of matches in 2016 and has also appeared for multiple of their youth teams. He played last season for Inter Miami CF and MLS. He played in the regular season and in the MLS's back tournament. And he also featured for their League One side, Fort Lauderdale CF. So a forward with plenty of experience. Tulsa have made a couple of nice moves this offseason, coming off of a pretty successful 2020. So they could be in store for even bigger things in 2021. I also wanted to talk about the Miami FC, who have just been wheeling and dealing this offseason. They made 4 big moves over this past week. But I want to talk about the 3 that they made in the midfield. First, defensive midfielder Bolu Akinyode joins from Birmingham Legion FC. Former player Ariel Martinez returns from FC Tulsa, And winger Cristiano Francois joins from Reno 1868 FC. All three of these guys are coming off of great seasons in the USL Championship. Akinyote is a great lockdown midfielder there in the center of the field. Martinez, of course, has played for Miami FC back before they joined the USL Championship, so good to see him returning. And Francois is coming off a great goal-scoring season for Reno. So here we are again with the Miami FC. We thought they were in store for big things in their debut season last year, but they fell flat. Now they've been bringing in a lot of different players, a lot of big names. They already brought in that duo from Louisville, Paco Craig and Speedy Williams. Now you add these guys to the mix. They're really making a lot of big moves, filling out the roster. We'll see if this time around they're going to be able to have some success and challenge for the top of the Eastern Conference. So those were just a few moves from this past week in the USL Championship to highlight. I'm going to get to a few more moves from that league here coming up in this segment, but I want to get to some bigger St. Louis soccer news first. Starting off with from this past week, ahead of their match versus Colombia, U.S. Women's National Team head coach Vlatko Andonovski announced that center back and St. Louis's own Becky Sauerbrunn would be the full-time captain of the national team going forward. Becky, of course, is one of the longest tenured players on the national team. She recently wore the armband during the November friendly win versus the Netherlands. She's worn it before since the World Cup victory. But this, of course, is a no-brainer. Putting St. Louis bias aside, Becky has been a leader wherever she has played, one of the longest tenured players on that team. A lot of the women already look up to her and look to her for guidance and for how they will play. Great defender, proven pedigree, championship winner. No other choice here except for Becky Sauerbrunn. So congrats to Becky leading the U.S. Women's National Team here going forward. Next up, I want to talk quickly about the St. Louis Ambush. They won their second match in a row this past Saturday, coming from behind once again, this time to beat their rivals, the Kansas City Comets, 7-6. I'm actually going to wrap up the show with a little bit of Ambush talk, so I'll save the rest of my thoughts for then. Next up, as far as former St. Louis FC players signing elsewhere, former left back and Canadian native Jeremy Gagnon-Lapare announced that he has signed for Halifax Wanderers FC of the Canadian Premier League. Jeremy only played 1 year in St. Louis, but he was pretty good before a major injury kind of ended his season prematurely. But still, best of luck to Jeremy in his new adventure, getting to go back closer to home in Canada. Elsewhere, former outside back Matt Boehner has re-signed with El Paso Locomotive FC after a successful 2020 season with them. And also, St. Louis native and former Chicago Fire goalkeeper Connor Sparrow has also signed with the Miami FC after he only made one appearance for the MLS side. Of course, Connor had a lot of experience with Nashville SC when they were part of the USL Championship. Native St. Louisan, congrats to Connor for finding a new team, and hopefully he can have a successful season with Miami. Well, to wrap up the show, I thought it'd be great to talk to someone who I've had a previous connection with, who's doing great things playing-wise and coaching-wise right now in St. Louis soccer. Hope you enjoy. Well, I'm very excited about my guest today. I used to call this guy's matches when he was a member of the Bradley University men's soccer team. He's then since gone on to be the joint top scorer for the St. Louis Ambush this season and is the youth director of the under-10 boys division at St. Louis Scott Gallagher. Otto Jahic, nice to be talking with you again, man. Thanks for joining me on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me out. I'm excited.
Awesome, man. Well, you're doing a lot of great work. Again, you're from St. Louis, so it's got to be cool to be a part of a couple of different big organizations here in St. Louis soccer. Let's start with the Ambush. You guys are obviously at the beginning of your season, in the midst of a 2-match winning streak. And what's been really cool to watch with you guys is over the last 3 matches, you guys have had comebacks to either tie or to take the lead in those matches. That type of resiliency, man, it is fun to watch. What has kind of led to that ability for you guys to fight back in these types of matches and has led to this winning streak?
I think it's been a lot of things. I think it starts from the top of the organization. I think we needed some time with all the new players coming in to click a little bit. I think things are finally starting to gel together for us, and I think that's what's shown on the field. And it's a group that really never says no and never gives up. So we fight until the last couple seconds of the game and hope to win it.
So you came in a little bit late last year. You came in around New Year's. Were able to really contribute right away. You put in 5 goals. You're up to 3 goals here as the beginning of the season. So you're on quite a bit of a tear here. Since coming in, what has clicked with your game specifically with this team and with this league?
I think just learning more of the indoor games. So learning from veterans that are on the team that have done this before. So I joined last year kind of late, mid-season. I really didn't get to have a preseason with the team or really get to learn the game. So I think going into this season, having a preseason, getting to know my teammates better, their tendencies, I think that's reflected on me and my performances so far.
So I want to kind of touch a little bit more on that because I think the transition is really interesting because obviously, for the most part, at least for me, I had a little bit of experience with indoor as kids, getting to go through VETA indoor
Yeah.
soccer. And I'm sure people have played it before, but usually it's mostly an outdoor soccer experience, which is your background comes in. So transitioning from outdoor to indoor, besides just all of the rules and regulations and things like that, it had to be kind of a little bit of a shock initially. So maybe expand a little bit more about that transition.
I think the transition actually isn't quite as easy as some people think. A lot of people think, oh, I'm a good outdoor soccer player. It's going to click automatically indoor. I think it's the total opposite. I think it's a whole different beast of its own nature. Playing indoor soccer, especially at a higher level when there's really the ball's flying everywhere. I think what helped me most is I'm a technical player. I would consider myself a technical player playing outdoor, playing as a midfielder. So I think that's what's helped really my transition coming inside, just being comfortable on the ball and being comfortable in those tight situations.
So let's talk about playing soccer right now in today's time, because obviously the pandemic kind of overshadows everything that is going on in the world, and specifically, of course, in our case, in sports. Playing in an indoor type league with all the different kind of rules and protocols that you guys now have to go through. What is it like playing through those? What is it like with the fan setup at the family arena and where you guys have gone on the road? How you've been able to deal with that stuff?
Yeah, it's been difficult. I'm not going to say that it's been easy. It's been definitely a challenging time for all of us. I mean, everybody in the world, but for us, I feel lucky that we're able to play and be out there. But the regulations, we're doing COVID testing almost before every game. We're wearing masks during training, which isn't the most ideal thing, especially being indoors. But we're doing everything we can just to play. And I think we're lucky enough to be in the St. Charles area with the family arena, the ability to have fans, and even the fans that come out, we're able to have up to 3,000. But the fans that are coming out, I couldn't thank them enough, especially during these challenging times. But I just think we're lucky enough to be playing. That's the way I look at it.
So let's switch gears to your work with Scott Gallagher. It's got to be super cool for you since you went through that system as a kid if you're playing soccer, now to be a part of it as kind of a director and as kind of a coach. So talk to me a little bit about your work. What have you most enjoyed about it?
Well, currently I'm a youth director for the 2011 age group, so the U10 boys. I mostly focus on just the directing role, reaching out to coaches, making sure my teams are in line, and then I do a lot of player development stuff, so a lot of private training, and then obviously being on the ambush, a lot of kids want to work with professional soccer players, so it's been a lot of player development training, just working with kids one on one, and I've loved everything about it, and the fact that I get to do it in a club that I grew up in and kind of spent my whole life with, it just makes it that much easier being back at soccer park every day.
So let's talk a little bit about that player development aspect of it, because this is a pivotal time right now for these kids to be continuing to growing their skills and growing the game. But obviously right now the pandemic has kind of put a few of those things on the back burner. It's made it a lot difficult for your guys and your work to get to these kids. So from a player development perspective, what are you guys focusing on right now? What do you think are the biggest aspects that kids need to be learning during these tough times?
I mean, during these tough times, we're keeping the groups a little bit smaller. It's one trainer per like 8 to 10 kids, and we're mostly focusing on technical aspects, just sharpening up the game and sharpening up the tools the kids already had pre-COVID times. Just making sure the kids are sharp, and then once we're fully back at things 100%, that the kids are ready to go and play.
So obviously there are a lot of different tiers to St. Louis Scott Gallagher, a lot of different divisions. There's a Missouri division, there's an Illinois division. So there's a lot of moving parts of it. But of course, at the top, there was some big news that came over the past week or so that Brad Davis will now be taking over as club president. Obviously, MLS legend, a lot of experience. Of course, one of St. Louis Scott Gallagher's own. Talk to me a little bit about him being elevated to this position, what you're hoping for, what you're excited about now for St. Louis Scott Gallagher.
Well, when I came to the job, we came in almost around the same time. It's a guy I grew up watching on TV, him being a St. Louis guy, and then watching him with the Dynamo and the stuff he's done with the national team. So even like me going into first day work, I was like, I kind of get to meet like a guy I looked up to and like kind of a St. Louis. He is a St. Louis soccer legend. So that aspect of it, I thought it was pretty cool just to be in the same room as him, talk to him, and then hearing the advice he's gave me since I came in and all that stuff. It's been absolutely incredible. And I think the role he's got as the new president, I don't think there's anybody more deserving of that, considering he's one of St. Louis' own. I think his resume speaks for itself, and I think he's just going to move the club forward in a positive direction. That's right that it's going in.
So then I get to the ultimate question here, because you're playing professional soccer and you're a director at a youth club, one of the top youth clubs, not just, in the Midwest or anything like that in the country. How are you able to balance both of those? And obviously it comes from having a love of the game, but doing both of those, man, that's quite a lot of bit of work to do.
Absolutely. So this is technically like my first real job. So I was playing last year. I didn't really have a job. So now being at Gallagher, it's a little bit more challenging. But again, I look at it, words from Brad that he gave me. I kind of came into the job once the season started, stressing I'm going to manage. And he's like, dude, relax, Otto. It's just soccer at the end of the day, which I think kind of sticks around. But yeah, I train every morning from 7 to 11, go home, grab some lunch, and then I head out to soccer park around 3 o'clock. So it's been I feel like I've been managing them well for the most part.
All right, I'll get you out of here on this. Going back to your work here with the Ambush and playing, again, you guys are in a match of a big streak right now, winning streak. A lot of home matches are coming up, which is kind of really cool, where your guys' home schedule will flood into February. There's a little bit of a hole right now in St. Louis when it comes to soccer. Obviously, St. Louis FC is done. We have to wait for St. Louis City SC to get going here in a couple of years. So there's a little bit of a hole in terms of professional soccer here in St. Louis that you guys could possibly fill right now. In the midst of a big streak, what is your message to current Ambush fans, to fans who want to learn a little bit more about the Ambush and follow you guys? What is your message as you guys get here into the meat of your season?
I think my message would just be come out and see these guys play once, because I think most people would fall in love with the game and the way it's played, especially us having some local players. There's local ties to the club. I think people need to give it a shot, get out and just really see what it's about, because I think it's a really cool experience, especially for kids, older adults, really any people of any age. If you like soccer, you need to come out and check out a game, because I think they'll like it.
Well, I know you guys have a lot of home games coming up, and I know the tickets are available at stlouisambush.com. And if you don't feel quite comfortable, the club are following health and safety protocols with masks and social distancing at the stadium. If you don't feel comfortable with that, I know there's a Facebook type pay-per-view set up online that you can watch the streams of your guys' matches. So there's that option there for fans as well. But you guys are doing a lot of great work. And of course, your work with Scott Gallagher is much appreciated for these kids in these tough times. So Otto, it's great to catch up with you, man. Best of luck with the rest of your season and the rest of your work with Scott Gallagher. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me out.
My thanks to Otto for joining me on the show. That'll do it for this episode of the Gateway to Soccer Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. For those wondering, there was no new Atletico TV episode this week due to the Martin Luther King Jr. Day holiday, but we'll be back with a new episode hopefully next week. Again, Atletico TV, my brand new project with Ricky Garza and Louis Swisher on local radio STL. Please check that out if you're interested for more local and international content. But again, thank you all so much for tuning in to this show, and I hope to be back next week with a brand new episode. Have a great weekend.